All right. Good morning, y'all. This is Coach Smith. Love the game 24/7 podcast coming to you live on this Saturday morning. Uh, Appreciate you guys and joining me. 11:35 a.m. Eastern Time. And I am your host, Coach Jeff Smith. Love the game 24/7 podcast. Be sure that you are subscribing um, to the YouTube channel. I'm live on YouTube. I'm live on Facebook, and I'm live on IG. Love the game 24_7. I'm going to put the link tree link in the uh, YouTube chat and the Facebook chat for you guys to do all of my social media platforms associated with Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7. So that way you can find me wherever I am. Whenever I'm posting things on TikTok, because I'm Love the Game 24/7 there as well. So I'm always posting stuff, putting out some shorts and different things of that nature. Um, I love for you guys to put some questions and things like that in the chat if you have some questions. Um, if you're watching this live or if you're watching the replay video on YouTube. Um, and I appreciate you guys checking me out, sharing this great information for you college recruits out there. There's always a lot of stuff in the world of sports, especially in college, even high school, all sports, male and female, young boys, young girl, athletes. Um, I'm always following uh, our sports for girls and boys, and so appreciate you guys plugging in, following me, sharing the great information that's out there. Um, if you want to get even more um, detail and more help with your young athlete with their recruiting process, you can partner and join with Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7. I have people always reaching out and contacting me and interested in signing up and getting on board and using my recruiting service and expertise and knowledge that I'm always wanting to share and help out and be sure that you get your young athlete lined up, going in the right direction, male or female, whatever sport they're playing, and help them with their recruiting process and help you, even as a parent, to understand this recruiting process. Because there's a lot to talk about um, all the time when it comes to the world of college recruiting for kids in high school sports. There's some things that are definitely needed to be talked about because there's a lot of people out there that don't really know what they're doing as they're going through this recruiting process. And I think that's more so than not, because this is new to a lot of people, because some people didn't play college sports, but they're blessed to have a young girl or young boy that's very talented. Um, or maybe you were talented in the sport, but you didn't take advantage of your opportunity, and you want to make sure your young person gets the opportunity that you didn't do a good job of, or didn't take it all, or didn't use it all. And as I've always shared, it's a good way to have your education paid for, get your education paid for. We have to keep that as part of the focus, because if you do get the opportunity to get NIL, blessed to get some NIL money, or to go to the next level at a pro level, or even if you just when your college career is over and you got that degree, you got to know how to handle that money, right? You got to know how to negotiate, even on a regular job that's not in sports, or if you're going in the sports field. So it's always important to have that degree to launch you forward, right? That's always important. So we have to keep that the main thing about all of this recruiting that's going on, potentially for your young person to get a scholarship to help pay for their education. Um, but I just want to dive into um, this Porter young man that messed up his career recently in the NBA for the gambling on against his team, um, and it just it's just a bad situation. Michael Porter Jr., I think, is his younger brother, um, Jonte Porter, in this scandal, and It's not Michael Porter of the Denver Nuggets, but it's his younger brother who was with the Toronto, I think he's with the Toronto NBA team, and it's just disheartening um, that the young man risked his career, NBA career, potential young career, to where he could have made many more millions for just $21,000 gambling. And we know that this stuff exists. Um, some people have grown up. I know in the area where I grew up, guys gambled. It wasn't something that I was into, but I knew guys like gambled on games, some of our high school games and different situations. And right or wrong, if you are a prospect, a potential prospect that have the opportunity to go off to college, that is something you definitely want to stay away from. Leave that to other people to do. Don't you get yourself caught up in uh, creating a bad habit, unhealthy habit that ruins your career down the road. And it just amazes me that we've heard people getting caught and things happen, but you always have those few people that say, "Oh well, they're not gonna catch me." Oh yeah, eventually they're gonna catch you if you are hard headed enough to continue to do something that we know the rules say not to do, and uh, we know the saying, right? The hashtag FAFO, right? So you all know what that means. So if you want to mess around and find out, go ahead and mess around and find out and ruin your career, ruin your chance to have generational wealth, to be a blessing to your family. Don't do it, guys, girls. Don't get caught up in things like that. And so it's just definitely, worthy of me to just bring up um, today, especially as a good segue to go into the NIL and transfer portal things that is always going to be on my mind to talk about, because I want to help direct some of you all to be sure that you don't mess up your young person's opportunity, especially if you aren't you're behind the scenes doing things, or you got certain people. Like I heard Coach Derek Tatum talking on his thing. I follow him, love following him, and he's coming at it just like I'm coming at it, right? With elite talent football. Follow him. He's a great resource as well. Elite talent football with Coach Derek Tatum, and as well as before you go pro. But I heard him mention how he's dealt with it. Like you said, he's coaching high school football just like I did, and he shared about how some kids are trying to get NIL deals or whatever, or going to other high schools, transferring to high schools. I mean, this is getting kind of ridiculous, for uh, athletes thinking that they can do NIL situations in high school um, and keep transferring. And that's not a good look if you keep transferring. Schools aren't going to trust giving you a scholarship if you're someone who keeps hopping around and not staying put. And it's not wrong for you wanting to get that bag. Totally in agreement with you getting that. But there's a such thing as you can either abuse or think you're something that you're not, or you've been told you're this type of player, and when you get to that level where it really means something, as I shared on my podcast the other day, that playing youth football and high school football, you pay yourself because you got to pay for your gear, you got to pay for all the different things that come along with youth football and high school football. You know, there's times where I help pay for a young man to play, or mom was short the money or whatever the case, and you don't want the young man to miss their opportunity to play football. So yeah, I've been, my wife and I have been where we gave donations to help ensure that some little boy or little girl don't miss out on the opportunity of playing youth sports. Um, and so you're paying to play, but when you go to college, it's a business contract, as I shared, and there's rules and guidelines, because now you know you could potentially get paid some money, right? But still, you're only being able to have this opportunity because of this college offering you a scholarship to get you, to be able to play at the next level, right? To get you an opportunity that if you're good enough, you may get some NIL opportunities. But if some of you all think that I don't want some of you high school kids, young boys and young girls out here think that everybody's getting NIL because that is not the truth. Everybody's not getting that NIL. And if Coach Derek Tatum saying is true, and I believe him. I don't think he's somebody who's lying because he's trying to do some positive things, just like I am. We're trying to help educate our folks on this, our young athletes and their parents. Okay. And if there's some high schools out there that's doing it, hey, that's on them. If you want to create that kind of a problem for yourself, then go right ahead. Um, but the thing you got to remember is when you get to college, because it is about business. It's more about money at that level than it is at the high school level. Not saying that high schools, you go places like Texas and different things like that. Parents are pumping money into those programs because they know those particular high schools in Florida or Texas, California, Georgia, Alabama, certain high schools, they're putting young people in college. We did it at Clearwater Central Catholic, CCC, where my sons played. Um, we have a reputation where we're going to, you come there, you're going to get great coaching. You're going to get the necessary hard coaching. You're going to get the development so you can mature and be successful at the next level. Everybody can't be a star, but everybody can do their part. Okay. But if you're not that guy, if you're not that girl, right? If you're not in the top few hundred of athletes, okay, in the country or in your state, where they heavily recruit whatever sport you're playing. If you're not one of the top, if you haven't put in the work, doesn't mean you're not good. Maybe you haven't gotten recognized like you should have. Or maybe some people find out when they, um, get scholarships that maybe this kid wasn't as good as we thought they were, or the height. Because some kids, um, you're going to get tried. When you go off to college and you got to play, you're 18, 19 years old, or 17 or 18 years old, and you're out there now playing with grown men who are really, who've been in college for a few years before you got there, and they know they just recruited this young man that's supposed to be all that, or young lady that's supposed to be all that, and you're coming to take their position, take their job, or because they know, we all know college recruiters always tell you, hey, if you come in and you look, like you're, ready to play, you may get some playing time. But we always know people get injured. It's a game. I don't care what sport, people get injured. And you may have to get thrusted in early. And you got to be ready. And so, it happened to my son when he was in college, his first year. Um, Teammate at the quarterback position, got injured and he had to play his freshman year. Um, it was you never want somebody to get hurt, but it's a nature and it's part of the game. And when it does happen, and it's your time to go in and make some plays and make a difference, you got to be ready, young lady, young man. So for you guys to think that everybody's getting NIL, that is not happening, right? And Coach Tatum also shared about how some people are getting their uncle who just got out of jail, or a family member who don't really know about money. If you got somebody who's supposed to negotiate for you and they don't have a background about finances or money, you need to find somebody, or know how to negotiate certain things. You can't learn some of this stuff on the fly. All right, just because you got a nephew or because you got a niece that's supposed to be all that, you know, just being straight with you. Um, Sometimes that's not good. You need to get somebody who knows what they're talking about. Like a Coach Tatum, like a Coach Smith, or whoever else you might know that may have played college and pro ball, that come from common sense, right? Come from experience, right? And um they're not, they're truly invested in your young person, okay, for their best interest, for your young athlete. So you have to be careful about when it's time to negotiate that, even if you are a top athlete and you're getting heavily recruited. You know, do you have somebody that knows what they're talking about when it comes to negotiating and understanding, and can explain to you what this contract means. And while we're going, if you got questions, hey, feel free to put a question in the chat. You know, and I'll try to catch some questions in the chat if you have some questions. But please, guys, with this NIL stuff, I'm a huge advocate for our young people getting paid for um, their sport, especially when it comes to um, certain sports like football that really and basketball that bring in the most money. And I'm an advocate for trying to get everybody paid for all sports, if possible, if that's possible. If there's a way to do it, and there are some colleges um, uh, that have NIL deals in other sports for their top performers. It may not be for everybody, but we know the gymnast. She's a top performer. I know, forget what school, but if you're a top performer in your sport, um, there are potentially NIL opportunities for you at the college level. Okay, but we got to stop thinking that NIL is going to be everybody coming out of high school who's getting recruited. You're going to get an NIL opportunity. You got to prove yourself. That's what I'm an advocate of and support. That everybody um, who uh, is contributing, and contributing at a high level and making a difference for their team. So you definitely got to take care of those folks first. And then if there's a way to help, because everybody's contributing, even though you may not be a star on the team, but if there's a way to get everybody some sort of um, recognition, to get some, money, to get paid, I'm a huge advocate for that as well. We need to do all we can to be sure that everybody can get, some sort of bag, right? And that's good. But we got to be realistic. That's not where we are right now today. Okay. And so for some of you all, um, because you've been told you're this or you're that, um, you got to make sure if you are, when it's time to cash those checks, man, right? When it's time to show up in that sport, when it's time to get in that game and show that you got to show up. And I know there are times where, just like I just know from experience, even when I was at the NFL, I'm like, man, how did this guy uh go to college where he went to college? Not saying he's not talented, but man, it's like, okay, um, I ain't seeing it. Or it's times where you're like, oh yeah, I see, yeah, he's a baller. You know, Athletes, we know who can ball and who can't ball. We'll be straight up with each other about that. If any of you all have played ball long enough, we know, like, oh yeah, she can play. Yep. hmm Oh no, I don't, he all right. I don't know how he got. And we're not going from making a judgment call from not seeing that person play. We're going for a judgment call because we're out there together and we're watching each other. We're playing, we're balling with each other. And it's like, man, I thought this cat was supposed to be all that, right? Even if I'm playing against a guy, I'm like, oh man, how you getting all this height, or how is she getting all this height? We know game recognized game, right? Game recognized game, okay. And when we don't see game, right? When we don't see game that we thought we were going to see, it kind of throws you back a little bit. Like, okay, well, they did a good job of uh, hyping this person up because I'm straight taking it to them. Or you may just be just that good, and you just haven't had the blessing. Like I said, with our coach in high school, a lot of times we miss getting recognized if it wasn't for another coach mentioning it. But sometimes our stats was just so good, somebody's gonna vote you in. But sometimes our coaches even go to the meetings to vote us in for some things, you know. And like I said, we got to make sure our kids are in places that are healthy. That's going to be help them mature and develop them. But everybody got to learn how to deal with some adversity. Okay. And when it's time for, we can't always make everything easy for our kids. All right. And I remember dealing with some of those things with my kids, even in elementary school, with different like shows and events that they had to audition for and different things. And you had parents always trying to, volunteer extra or do this or do that to be sure that their kid got put out front, and they weren't. really deserving of being out front. Let's just be honest and be real. If there were certain parents that weren't involved as much as they were, and get into the politics, no, we got to learn how to teach our kids, you know, how to earn it, how to put their time, put their time in. Right. There's some things that you have to earn. Right. There's some things. Hey, we're going to give you opportunity, of course. Right. And then when you get those opportunities, you got to earn it. Right. You got to stay there. And when some of you kids get ready to go off to college and you got to deal with 22, 23, 25-year old young men, and you're only 17, 18, and you coming in and try to take their position, you know, there's some guys gonna come at you, right? They're gonna mess with you and see how tough you are mentally. Not necessarily physically. Sometimes you'll have that too, but there gonna be some guys or like, oh yeah, who you think you are coming from, where you from, or you supposed to be all that. Yeah, I heard the coaches talking about you, but we're gonna we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out what you got on this field. And 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 if we're not careful and we haven't prepared our young athletes, our young boys and young girls for when you're gonna have to deal with some of that adversity. People gonna be ready to call you out. And if things were always so easy for you, and then when something is a little tough, you know, you don't want to deal with it. And that's a great segue into what we're talking about, not just NIL opportunities, but also this transfer portal. There are some legitimate reasons why some young men and some young ladies are in the transfer portal. Legitimate. There are some coaches that are jerks. Let's just call it what it is, right? Or they didn't keep their word, right? I remember I told you a while back I had a podcast, you know, um, and see, Coach Saban is from that old school of things where they had the formula to where they got most of the talent. And sometimes, and I shared it when I talked about Alvin Kamara when he transferred and left Nebraska and went to Tennessee and still became all SEC and was a top draft pick. But they tried to move him to a DB position when he was at Alabama, right? Because some coaches will recruit guys, right? This is back in the day, and this is what I appreciate about the transfer portal. This is what I appreciate about where coaches like Cam Newton had to deal with Urban Meyer when he was ready to transfer, and Urban Meyer want to put restrictions on because those rules applied back in the day. NCAA rules, a coach could restrict you from where you could transfer to. Now they don't have they don't have those restrictions, transfer restrictions on kids like they used to, like back in my day, or like Cam Newton's day when he was ready to transfer. That's why he went JUCO after leaving Florida for a year and won a JUCO championship. That's why, but Alvin Kamara was able to go because of some rule changes, was able to go to Tennessee. I think he may, if I have to double check, I don't recall if he had to sit out a year because that was part of the rules, and he may have had to sit out a year before he got to play. And if he did, that's another workaround. 'Cause sometimes you would have to sit out when you transfer from um, when you go lateral, right? If you're at a D1 and you go to another D1, or you're at a D2 and you go to another D2, right? When you make a lateral movement, you don't go up or down. The rules were a little different when those things happen. But today, student athletes have more freedom in college to do so, right? And so, as I was going to say, some coaches would recruit some kids just to keep you from going somewhere else, so they don't have to play against you, right? And they know you're a good player, but they know they might be deep at a position, and in their minds, they just like, hey, we get you to sign and get you on campus, then we'll figure out and talk you into possibly moving and changing positions. And some guys were okay with that because they were going to ball out no matter what they played, and they were good enough, to be able to transition. And it didn't really was an issue with some guys. Some guys I know it was an issue, and that's why they would transfer, right? Or some other things may have happened, got in trouble. There's a lot of different reasons, but in a lot of cases in the transfer portal, guys would transfer because or be ready to transfer because yeah, they weren't, you know, there were promises made when they recruited you, and you don't see it happening. But then again, are you stepping up, young lady, young man, to show yourself worthy of getting that play time or being on the field. And it's not easy, being a freshman and this your first time in college and getting out there on the football field with no experience, right? Because that could mess you up, okay? Because if you go out there, you may be talented enough and have all that, but mentally, if you go out there and you're not having the success that you thought or think you should have because of all the hype people told you who you were when you were younger and high school and all that stuff. And then when you get to college and everybody's pretty much on an equal level playing ability. And now you got to mentally figure this thing out because the game is more mental than it is physical, right? It's probably about 10% physical, or it could, it might be a little more than that. But when you get to those levels, when you get to playing at a high level, okay, you got to think about how to deal with somebody that's just as equally as talented as you are, right? Because the physical stuff, I believe, comes easier as you mature and get older. Everybody doesn't like it, but what I'm saying is you're mature enough, you know what you need to do. Now, everybody doesn't do it because they think physically they're going to be able to go out there. No, you better be able to think because there's this guy right across from you trying to get that same bag you're getting, or he has his bag and he's trying to get it, or he's trying to increase it, and he or she is coming at you, and you got to mentally figure out, hey, I know I have the physical ability, but do I have the mental capacity, right, to meet that equal competitive drive that I'm going against that's right across from me? Can I meet that young lady's same competitive, uh, you know, mentality, that dog mentality, right? Because that's why I say it's more mental than it is physical. At every level, it's more mental than physical. But when you definitely go to college, and now it's about the bag for real, because they're making money in college, and that coach's job is on the line. That high school and little league coach job is on the line, right? That's their job is not on the line at the high school and little league level, but at the college and the pro level, my job is on the line as a coach, right? And so this transfer portal stuff, there are some legitimate reasons why some guys are in there. Even if a coach did say or promise certain things, right? And you can't run from every um, obstacle or hurdle that comes in front of you that tries to get you off task, or some things come at you because you need it to help build you up mentally, to help build you up, um, to make sure you're ready to play this sport. Because we gotta have some dogs out there. It's competitive and there's money. It's a business now. It's more of a business at college and the pro level. And some guys, have to get some help mental because there's pressure from family and everybody. You feeling like you have to do it all and make it, and sometimes that is the case. And sometimes families need to learn how to be careful. Parents, moms, and dad. Even though we know you're coming from, not having money in your family to potentially now having some money, and you don't want to mess up the opportunity, but there's a lot of pressure. There's pressure, but you got to learn how to manage it. As parents, we got to learn how to remove some of that pressure and say, baby, no, go out there and have some fun. Go out there and enjoy it. And hey, if it works out to where you can get some NIL or you can make some money, hey, we'll cross that hurdle when we get to it. If we have that kind of opportunity, and for those who do have that opportunity, you got to manage it. Still, you can't put too much pressure upon your young people, um, and then they go south, and you wonder why they go south, and it's because everybody's trying to pull on them, and you have to protect them from those types of things, right? And the coaches have that same responsibility as well, even if they do have a high um, performing athlete, young girl or young boy athlete. It's your job as a coach to protect. It's your job as parents to protect. Make sure their mental is good. Make sure there is no unnecessary pressure on them. Some of that pressure is warranted, right? If you want to be in this business of sports and you want to have that success, there's some things that come along with it. And if you're not ready for it, and if you don't have a good, healthy community or village on you, doesn't mean you're not going to still have some success and make money. But how are you going to be mentally, right? How are you going to be financially? We got to have some real talk, man. We got to make sure this stuff starts early. And some of you parents got to be realistic. Some of you all, you know, um, I heard something, or not heard, but I read something on one of the NIL circulars that I read to keep myself up to date on all things NIL and all sports in high school and college. And I'm not saying, hey, you don't deserve some NIL in the high school level if that's what's happening. If there's some schools that's willing to do that, hey, that's on, and you have that opportunity, hey, by all means. But I saw something when I was reading the thing about Deion Sanders, about the young man transferring, the Florida kid, DB, transferring and leaving. Where I saw, as I was reading that article, where I don't know if it was at Colorado with Dion, but somewhere in that article, as I was reading it, talked about how a mother was trying to negotiate playing time in the scholarship for their athlete. Now you're getting over. Now you're going over the board. I feel anyway. You're going over the board, and you don't want to be that parent that ruins your child's opportunity to go to certain schools, some really good schools, where they definitely might, if they go and do well, they're going to get a chance to go to the next level and play pro ball. Thanks for joining me on YouTube. I appreciate it. Hey, how's it going, Tree? Tree Poo, how's it going? Appreciate you joining me. Um, Tracy Poo, I appreciate it. Um, she's joining me on IG. But yeah, you gotta understand, as a parent, mom or dad, you're asking the college you're trying to negotiate playing time. That's a no-no. I'm not saying um, playing time is not discussed, because it is. When you're getting recruited, even when I got recruited, you know, Coach Lovett said to me, "Hey, I think you got a real good chance to at your, knowing what we had back at Morningside." He said, "Hey, you might have a chance to get it, get you some play time, your freshman year. If you come in and you show that you're capable of, you can catch on to the offense, your plays, right? You're going to class, you're doing the things you're supposed to do, you're at meetings, right? You understand the concept of the offense and what's going on, because that has a lot to do with it. Sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with I'm not physically able, because most of us we are physically able, but are you mentally able to know your plays, to know your assignments, to know where you're supposed to be, right? Because that next man, them other 10 men, or other 5 women on that court, or the other 4 women on that court, they expect you, right, to know your plays and be where you're supposed to be and make the pass you're supposed to make, or make the shot that you're supposed to make, right? And the same thing when it comes to football or lacrosse and soccer. Your teammates are making want to be sure when they call out a play that you're aware, mentally aware where you're supposed to be, and using your ability to help the team win, right? And so when I read that, where the mom was trying to negotiate in her football athlete scholarship and negotiate playing time, and you're going over the board with that, okay? Because those things, like I said, are discussed when coaches recruit you. Like my coach said to me, Coach Lovett said to me, and I got the opportunity to play my freshman year. A lot had to do with, because we had some good running backs. Johnny Brown, who I played with out of Fort Myers, North Fort Myers. He grew up and played with Deion Sanders. He was a good running back. We had Tom Kenny, and Dale Gasquint. They were upperclassmen along with Johnny Brown. Um, and so we had a deep backfield with some pretty good talent. Then we had some guys had some hamstring issues, and so I had to get, um, I got to play, and I was able to make some plays as a freshman, and to continue to get more and more time on the field my freshman year. And then it just increased. As my sophomore year, I was in starting rotation. So, um, but I was always taught by my father when I was young in Little League. He always preached, know your plays, be a student of the game, know where you're supposed to be, because other people are relying on you. That's what we have to remember. That's what we have to get back to about sports. People are relying on you to do your job in your sport, going to class, doing what you're supposed to do, right? Because that's all a part of keeping that scholarship. Have we heard stories of where people got pushed through classes, or people taking classes? Yeah, we know about all those stories. And what did it benefit a person when that stuff went on? Didn't benefit a lot of them, or most of them, very well at all, if they even ever got their degree, right? I don't want to just get my bag. I want my degree. So when I walk up in some places, even when my playing days are over, I can say I have a degree, multiple degrees. I have a bachelor's degree in business, and I have a MBA in sports management and marketing. I want to be able to get more bags because I have my degree. I want to be able to uh, sit at the table and you know let people know I know the talk. I know the discussion. I know how to speak and how to understand and know what's going on. Not just an athlete. I'm educated all the way around. I'm educated life experience. I'm educated with the books and the degrees. You know, I want to be sure that, hey, when you talk to me, oh, Coach Smith know what he's talking about from experience, right? And so that's what we have to teach our young people. Man, don't just get the bag, young lady, young man. Get the bag along with that degree and all the opportunity and experience that you'll be blessed that can come along with that. But when you're talking about trying to negotiate in a scholarship playing time, that's a no no. See, just like I listen to Coach Tatum and some of his stuff, and a lot of other people I listen to. We're creating soft kids, soft athletes, and we don't need soft athletes because you get a soft athlete, they get out there and they get hurt, or they fall into depression or mental issues because everything was always given to them, everything was always laid out for them, as opposed to them learning how to earn, how to really learn, right? How to really learn how to deal with opposition. Sometimes that opposition is good to teach you how to work through some stuff, right? How to really believe in yourself, right? Because you got to bet on yourself. Don't bet on the game. Bet on yourself, on the work ethic you have, the knowledge you have, and your physical ability and talent that you have, and all that stuff goes together that makes you valuable, that makes you worthy of an NIL, right? And some of you all need a little more time. You're not totally there yet. And it's okay to have some expectations, but let's have some realistic expectations, right? Because I used to tell my son, if you're gonna be Division 1 material, you got to show. We got to be able to see it on the video when you're playing your game. They got to see that you're a man amongst boys out there. They got to see that you're always one of the best, if not the best player on the field. And when you can show that, and then when you're going against teams where they are some ladies or some young ladies and some young men that you're competing against in your sport, young lady athlete, young boy athlete, young man, and you know that opposing team has some recruits over there that's being heavily recruited, and you go out and ball out against them. Now you just put yourself on the map. Now you just legitimize that, hey, this team got some 4 and 5 star guys over there, but this team over here that I don't really know about, there's some guys over here that just balled out and beat these guys, or we competed well against them and made a game out of it, and it was obvious that this team had some athletes that was able to compete against this team that got all these athletes. And so recruiters recognize that. And then when you're um, working your recruiting, you can point out, hey, here's a game. When you were emailing coaches or talking to coaches, hey, did you see that game such and such that I played in? And they had about, several guys over there that were 4 or 5 star athletes, but we took it to them. And I was one of the ones that stood out and helped win that game along with some of my other teammates. Yeah, okay. That's what it's about. That's when you market yourself. That's when you promote yourself. You don't have to win the game, but if you showed that you stood out against, and you went up against a guy that's being heavily recruited, or you went up against another girl that's being heavily recruited, and you balled out against them, then that should tell you that you deserve to be getting some attention. And you need to learn how to point that out to recruiters when in your own recruiting. You need to learn how to point that out and make it known, right? That's why you need to get to these summer camps and get yourself exposed and learn how to market yourself. But parents, you got to be careful with this NIL thinking that, hyping our kids up and, you know, I didn't hype my son up about stuff. I knew my son was good. Like I said, he's going on 6 years in the NFL, right? And I know when he did his pro day, his numbers were highly competitive against the top 5 athletes at the NFL Combine that he didn't get invited to. Didn't get an invite to the Combine, but his pro day numbers, his 4.3 in the 40, his whatever his 4 flat or 4.1 in the short shuttle, and other things that he did, and his bench press at the wide receiver position, all those things, right? His numbers were in the top 5, top 7 guys at the combine. That means he would have been right in the mix. And probably if he would have gotten the invite to the combine, would have potentially raised his stock to get drafted. But you can't let stuff like that stop you because you didn't get the invite. When you do get your chance, when you do get your moment in the sun, like he did, and like so many guys do, when you get your time at your pro day because you know you should be being more highly sought after, and you just didn't get, you know, for whatever reason, you're not. But when you get your chance, because everybody will get a chance, and you have to prepare yourself every day for that chance, for that opportunity. So when he got his chance, he showed up. He did what needed to be done, right? And as I said before on another podcast, everybody's not going to get to where they want to get to, like the NFL, NBA, MLB, Olympic team for gymnastics or track. Everybody gets there different. Everybody has their own path, a way of getting there. But as long as you get there, that's all that matters. Because one day you'll get your moment in the sun. But you just got to keep working. I never tried to make my road easier for my kids, for my boys. I just tried to make a road for them and then be a guide and gave them information and said, okay, now what from how you've been taught, I encouraged you and told you, yeah, I think you got talent, but this is the work you're gonna have to put in. I provided the means and the way of learning how to make themselves uh, perform and do well, whether it was in the classroom or in their sport. As a parent, I just laid it out there for them, but then they got to do the work. I'm there to support. I'm there to help tell them the real, give them the real. And when they run up against some adversity, be there to support and give them some ways, um, share with them some ways and strategies on how to, make it work through that adversity, to work through those situations. That's what we're supposed to be as parents, not trying to make their way easy. But you can't tell some people that. Some people hear what I'm saying right now, and you're not going to be able to tell them nothing. They're going to go out and do what they're going to do, right? And then want to complain later about why things didn't go like they should have. Because sometimes as parents, we can mess some things up, you know, put too much on our kids and they don't go perform like they should. Because all they're thinking about is, man, my mom this or my dad this or whatever the case may be, right? They got to be healthy so they can go perform like they're capable of doing. And so we have to be careful as parents that we don't overstep things. We're just, we're there to guide. There's some things that, we tell them, hey, you need to listen. You do need to do this. There are those things, but I just like with my oldest son, when he was in college, it was a time that, because of some things that went on with him when he moved from quarterback to wide receiver, that I wanted him to consider transferring. So I laid everything out for him about what could potentially happen if he did transfer, some opportunities, or if he decided to stay, you know, this is what's going to potentially happen. And this is some things that you're going to need to do, whether you leave, whether you transfer and leave, or you decide to stay. But I made sure I gave him some options. I gave him some information, and we met and talked about it. And I got other people who he respected, that we both respected. His former coach and his quarterback coach, his uncle, my brother. We all, we played pro ball. We coached. We've been through some things. We had a lunch. I got those people together because I wanted to be sure that my son had good information before he made a decision on whether he was going to transfer and leave and go try to continue to play quarterback somewhere else, or whether he was going to stay where he was at and go ahead and change positions. Right. And that's what needs to happen before your athlete goes into the transfer portal and end up with no scholarship and have to walk on somewhere, because that's what's happening to a lot of kids. Right. But if that's the road you have to travel now, then you're going to have to be sure that you take care of business if that's what you put yourself in. But you can't complain and waddle and everything when you didn't get some good information before you decide to transfer. My son decided, hey, Dad, I want to stick here with my boys. I came in here. I'm like, okay, son, if that's what you're going to do, because I know what the coach is going to do. We already know how his play calling is, and this is what's going to happen. So when you get your few opportunities, you got to make something happen because you're not going to have many opportunities. And I know you're going to get frustrated. I told him, I said, you're going to get frustrated. But no, Dad, I'll be able to handle it. And guess what? He got frustrated. And I was there to help guide and support. Not say I told you so, but to say, hey, man, look, we had this discussion, but this is what you got to, this is how you need to work through it. And he worked through it. He worked through it. And it paid off for him when he got his opportunity. Because my whole thing was, you're going to get an opportunity. You're not going to get many because you're changing positions. And I know how this offense is, and you know how it is. But when you do get the few chances that you do get, boy, look here, you're going to have to make the best of it. And then when it's time to work out and train and showcase your ability for these NFL teams, when you get your opportunity on pro day, hey, this is what you got to do. I know you're capable of doing it, but this was your dream, right? It was your daddy's dream at one time. It ain't mine anymore. I just want to help. Be sure I give you good information and guide you so you don't mess up your opportunity. And I don't want you to think like, hey, you're doing it for pop. No, that's part of it. But the main thing needs to be is you're doing it for yourself. Set yourself up. But that gonna be my job is to make sure I give you good information, good uh, to help you make some good decisions. And like I said, when things happen, it wasn't that I told you so. I was just like, hey, we had this discussion, but hey, let's talk about how you need to work through this because this is what you need to do. So when you get your moment in the sun, and he had some games where hey, he got fed the ball, he made some things happen, scored some touchdowns, right? He should have got an invite to the combine, didn't get it. Well, what you gonna do? You ain't got time to pout. You got time to put some work in. So when that opportunity comes up at your pro day, you can show people what time it is, that you're a real baller. And some folks gonna miss out and wish they would have drafted you or whatever the case. Right. So he did, he took care of business. He took care of his business. But I laid it out there for him. Didn't try to make it happen for him, I just laid it out and said, this is what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to run this. You're capable of running, but you're gonna have to do it. But you ain't gonna get too many more times to do it. So when you get this time to do it, let's get prepared, preparation. So when it's time to put that clock on you, and when they put that clock on you, it was like, oh, okay, all right. And then you got to go catch the ball. You got to run some routes. You got to learn how to do that stuff, right? Because there's gonna be pressure on you moving from quarterback to wide receiver. But I knew he was skilled enough to do it. But still, got to put the work in. He put the work in. Him and his boys, they would put work in, extra work in. When he was done, he was putting work in. You know, so and that's what I'm saying. We can't, as parents, you can't give them everything. We got to let them work through some adversity, but you just got to be there to help support them and give them some, and if you don't know it, that's why you got Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7. That's why you got Derek Tatum and Elite Talent Football. That's why you got Before You Go Pro. There's a lot of us, right? And make sure you get some good people. If it ain't me, find somebody. Find somebody that's going to tell you the truth, that's going to lay it down and give you the real conversation and not sugarcoat anything for you. We're going to tell it to you simple and plain. Simple and plain. If you can't understand simple and plain about what needs to be done, not just your athlete, but for some of you parents out there, I'm gonna tell it to you simple and plain. Okay. So I've been there and had the opportunity. I'm blessed to have kids doing well, both my boys. And I just want to be a blessing to help some other folks out there get it. Because it's enough of the foolishness going on where people missing opportunities that they shouldn't be missing. Right. So, and I don't want you to miss your opportunity. I don't want you to miss your blessing because of being misinformed. I know the Bible tells me um, um, because of a lack lack of information, my people perish. And I don't want you to perish because of misinformation or lack of getting information because you don't have a person who has uh, knowledge and experience. Like Coach Tatum said, the uncle that just got out of jail. No, hey, I'm glad the uncle's out of jail, but if the uncle ain't experienced about this game, right, of knowing what to do, you better find somebody who knows what to do to kind of help guide you. help guide the uncle and your athlete and you, mama and daddy. So then it get to a point to where, hey, after you gotten some guidance and you understand this thing now, hey, now you can run with it yourself. But don't mess up the opportunity before it happens because you're asking for some things that your athlete's not prepared and ready for because they're not that person yet. They're not that guy. They're not that girl. They're just a jag, just another guy, just another girl. Okay. And only the top of the top of the top will get some NIL deals. And you have to remember these NIL deals are there's a lot of different things tied into them, from performance, right, to whether you go pro in your sport. Some of them may be asking for some of that money back, and you signed it not knowing what that NIL deal said. And when they come to reap um, or recover some things, and you're like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "Well, you signed this NIL deal, and this is what it stipulated. You better read everything. You better get somebody who um, knows how to read contracts, right, and can share with you. Oh yeah, if you don't do such and such, you don't run this many yards. If you don't hit this many 3-pointers, if your 3-point percentage is not at this level, right? If you don't score over 1,000 points, or if we don't win. If you don't help lead the team to win this many games to get into the tournament, there's a lot of creative things out there that they're going to try to do not to give you NIL money. That's the thing you got to understand. Yep. Hey, if you're bringing that, they know if you meet that NIL, some of those stipulations, it's going to bring money and business to the school, right? So they don't have a problem paying it out when you're doing those things and meeting or exceeding those contract agreements in that NIL because they know it's lovely. That means everybody's happy. Everybody's making their bag. The school at the college level, everybody's making it. You as an athlete, right? So you got to understand that. You don't just say, "Oh yeah, we giving you an NIL deal, blah 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 for this much, blah blah," and you haven't read or understood anything about what the NIL deal said. And some of them are giving you some money, part of that money now. Some of them say, "Hey, we'll give you some of this money later by when you graduate, okay, or when you decide to go pro. If you decide to leave in football, you can leave by your junior after your junior year. Basketball, you can be one and done, right? Um, so you gotta get some understanding about what that NIL contract is that you signed, that you agreed upon. And some of them are saying you got to go to class, can't be late to meetings. They're gonna be all kind of stipulations in that thing to try to not pay you as opposed to paying. They want to pay you, but they're gonna have some things in there not to pay you if you don't keep uphold your end of the bargain, right? Because in most cases they're prepared to uphold their end of the bargain. They are. In most cases they are. They're in a position to uphold it. But are you as an athlete? Are you in a position where you're gonna uphold your end of the bargain? And some of you all have the ability to do so, but you better get some understanding. And all you're getting, get some understanding. So in all your bags that you're getting, and all them bags that you're getting, you better get some understanding about how you got those bags and how you're gonna be able to keep those bags and not give those bags back or a portion of those bags back. So this is what I'm saying. So be careful, folks out there. It's great that we have these opportunities. It's great that the transfer portal is not totally controlled by the coaches, and the athlete doesn't have some say so. Because that was to me that was totally wrong. So there's some positive to what's going on, but some of the stuff where people are getting just ridiculous about negotiating playtime. No, your athletes learn how to negotiate their playtime by, are you coming to meetings? Are you going to class? Are you performing? Because they know they've given some scholarships to some athletes, and that guy, that girl wasn't who they thought they were getting. That athlete didn't perform at the level that they thought they were going to get. It happens more than you think. And they've been doing this much longer than you have. Some of you all are new to this game. Some of you all are very new and don't have a clue about this business. I'm still learning some things, and I've been in it for a while. And there's some things that I have to make sure I stay on top of. But for some of you all that this is new and it's new to a lot of you all out there, and you don't have a clue about what's going on and what's happening. Because they've given out this scholarship money to some athletes, and it's like, man, we thought we were getting a baller, you know. And sometimes it could be something um, that could be fixed to be sure that they're getting the baller that they thought they were getting. Because, like I said, there's a lot of mental stuff going on today that we're more privy to, that we weren't as well educated on back in my day. It was always, oh no, you work through it. And some of us did, but some of the things that we know now, hey, you got sports psychologists, there are laws where schools, I'm an administrator, college administrator going on 25 years, and there are laws where schools must have for all students, not just athletes, all students. You got to have some counseling services available because there are some kids going through some tough situations, some tough things. I deal with it all the time to help kids keep and maintain their financial aid that they're getting because they're going through some tough mental things at home, personally, things that they're experiencing on campus that maybe they weren't prepared for because mom and dad kept them, you know, close to them and didn't give them any kind of freedom when they were in high school. As you prepare them, you got to loosen that leash a little bit to help, um, help your young person, your young girl, your young boy mature and grow up and learn how to make some decisions on their own, just like I had to, as I just shared with my son when I wanted him to consider transferring. Um, and I could have easily, you know, um, made him do some stuff. You would have listened, but I'm like, no, that's not how I need to do things. I need to let him make the decision, you know. And I think there's some situations where there's some parents where you do have to sometimes really tell your athlete, or your young person, no, this is what we're going to do, right? I know Lamar Jackson. You hear the story where his mom told him that the first time she hear about them trying to move Lamar from quarterback to something else, she's taking him out. And in his situation where he didn't have his father in his life and his mom was most the influence in his life, and she learned. I tell you one thing, his mom learned the business. She didn't just run around talking and not knowing what she was talking about. She knew what she was talking about, and she told him, "Look, I know this is what he's capable of." And I knew that same thing about my son as well. You know, I had a little different approach, and she had a little different approach, and I don't think either one of those approaches were wrong. She did what she knew she needed to do because of the relationship she had with her son, and knowing and believing in him. you know. And same thing with me and my son. I knew, hey, I trusted, hey, you make this decision, you're gonna. I know he was mature enough to deal with it, and he would do what he needed to do to put himself in a good position, and he did that. And Lamar Jackson did the same thing. He put work in. Lamar has shown his improvement at the quarterback position every year, even since he's been in college, right? And so, you do have those times where we do need to tell him, no, this is what we need to do, right? And I've had those conversations with my son. Yeah, this is what you need to do. Now, whether they listen or not, that's on them. But there are times that we do need to tell them that. And just like I'm telling you right now, parents on this podcast, there's some things that you need to do. And there's some things that you don't need to be doing. Right. So I think we have to be very, very careful because you don't want to be there are teams, there are colleges, and there are pro teams that if they get any kind of win that a parent is a certain type of way, I'm not saying nobody's gonna give them a chance because they're a top tier player. They'll get an opportunity. And we got to be sure we are honest with our kids that everybody can't go Division 1. Okay, everybody can't go Division 1. Some kids are gonna have to go Division 2, and then you're gonna have to go because and if you're really that good, and I've had to tell some young men that um, you should if you are a Division 1 player, then you should go at this Division 2 school and become an All American within your first or second year at that D2 school, and then transfer to a D1. That makes a whole lot more sense. Go get some experience, go get some maturity, go get some development, knowing that you probably are Division 1. Because I felt the same way. I could have transferred to D1, but I didn't. I stayed where I was at. Still got opportunity to go to the NFL. My chances probably would have fared better if I would have transferred to the Division 1 school. It probably would have, you know. But not having a dad around or anybody around to help teach me or educate me on that, I stayed where I was. I don't think it was terrible decision at all. Um, got some great brothers that I'm close to that I played with. Great experience, and I still had the blessing of going to the next level and being a undrafted free agent in the NFL and got some opportunity. Gave myself an opportunity. That's all I could ask for. And so we have to be careful about that as well. Okay. So and so for you young boy out there, you young lady out there that um, you know, there's some coaches that want you to commit early, and you're trying to negotiate NIL. Be careful with that. You might need to commit early, because if you don't, some of these coaches will go to the portal and you miss your opportunity. So you got to weigh those options. Don't drag it out too long because you're trying to get NIL opportunity, and you may not be that NIL type of athlete just yet. Maybe after you get there and get some development, you might. Okay, and some of you all got to learn how to be willing to do that. Get developed and go earn it, because some of you all not going to get that right out the gate. Okay, so I appreciate you guys joining me and having this discussion. Look forward to having some more solid and great discussions. But it's always uh, good information when we're talking about NIL and transfer portal, um, and all the things about college sports that's going on to try to help you, your young athlete, get that opportunity. But we also got to be sure we keep the main thing about getting this education and hopefully getting that bag, if you're not one of those ones that are being highly sought after, on how to get that bag once you get that scholarship and have the opportunity to get some NIL opportunity after you get to college. Okay. So got to be real and honest and straightforward with you all about that. And so I appreciate it. Let's have some more great discussion. Thank you for joining me. Share this with those you know. Partner up with Coach Smith. Be sure you subscribe to that button on the left on YouTube. If you're listening to this live or the recording, be sure you follow on YouTube, on IG, Love the Game 24_7. Questions, email me at lovethe247game@gmail.com. Um, I'm excited about what's coming down the road, because we're moving and shaking. Love the Game 24/7. We're going to help get your athlete in college, and we're going to help you parents understand how this thing works. We're here as a resource, right? And so you got to invest in your kids, because you do that, there's chances are that that investment is going to return to you in your favor, in your athlete's favor. So have a great and blessed weekend. Until next time, until Wednesday, you know, you guys take care and be sure you get the word out there. Thank you, and take care, guys.